You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. Bitcoin, Ether, Ripple, Litecoin, and more. Cryptocurrencies and other digital assets are taking the financial world by storm. This exploding market provides everything a savvy trader needs: volatility, volume, and liquidity. Provided you know how to find it. That's where we come in. Welcome to the Crypto Rundown. Each week we'll break down the latest trading activity, trends, and developments on everything from coins to tokens, futures, and even OTC options. If it's moving the crypto markets, then you'll find it on the Crypto Rundown. Now it's time to dive into the exploding world of cryptocurrencies and digital assets. It's time for the Crypto Rundown.
All right, everybody, that music means it is time once again for the program here on the network where we break down everything going on the crypto side of the fence. We're going to talk the options, the futures, the spot, the volume, the volatility, the SKEW, all that good stuff, and a whole bunch more. Yep, it's time for the Crypto Rundown. I will be your host, your Major Domo, your Major D for this episode here. You can join me, of course, on the Options Insider Radio Network for all the fun programs that we do. Not just crypto. Just listening to crypto, you're missing out on all the other cool stuff that we do. Pretty much 95% of the network. So head on over there, wherever you're listening to this, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever you get it, our website. Make sure you check out the full network, the full kit and caboodle. We will keep you engaged, occupied, informed, enlightened, perhaps even entertained throughout the week there with all of our slew of content hitting you. And you guys have questions or comments, you know where to hit us up. And, of course, if you like what you hear, make sure you leave those reviews in the platform of choice so folks can continue to discover this fun program as they head right on into the Bitcoin Breakdown.
It's time to explore the latest trending activity, trends, and developments across the world's leading crypto market. It's time for the Bitcoin Breakdown.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Bitcoin Breakdown, the portion of the show where we break down exactly what that is, the leading digital asset out there, a.k.a. Bitcoin. And we were talking about last week, couldn't really hold that 12,000 level. Well, this week it broke through it, and then some. Coming into showtime, we're at a little bit north of 12,400, 12,405 to be precise. That puts us up pretty much almost exactly 500 handles from where we were this time last show. We were just a little bit shy, 11,900 at the end of last show. So a nice little run here for Bitcoin. Breaks 12,000, can sustain it, can maintain it. That's a level I know a lot of you folks out there have been watching. We've been talking about that 12,000 strike for a while on the options. You guys seem to, even 11,000, you guys kind of just jumped right past 10,000 for some reason into 11,000 for a while. Even when Bitcoin was threatening 9,000 in the wrong direction, you were still piling into that 11,000 strike. And now, lo and behold, here we are at the 12,000 strike and beyond. So let's break it all down. The volume, the volatility, all that fun stuff. A lot of these stats coming at you courtesy of our friends over there in SKEW land, SKEW.com. Check it out. Kick the tires and light the fires for yourself. As we head on in, let's see what the realized vol is up to first. And spoiler alert, it's up a wee bit. It was 53% on the last show, 56% this show. That's, of course, the 30-day realized. What that means, listeners, is, of course, the 30 days of actual volatility that has been exhibited in the past in Bitcoin. So you're looking back with realized vol. Now let's look forward to implied vol. We're looking 30 days ahead, what the market is pricing in, a future prognostication for volatility, if you will. And that's up a bit as well. That was 61% on the last show. Now it's pricing in 71%. So getting a little bit juicier out there, which is interesting. We've been moving a bit, so it's not surprising from that perspective. People who come at it from an equity options perspective may be a little bit surprised because they always conflate upside with lower volatility, not higher. Yep. At the end of the day, movement is movement, listeners. If we're in movement, it's gonna generate some vol, and we're seeing it out there again. We're seeing a bit of a swing in the SKEW as well. Not a huge move like we have seen in past weeks where it went from negative all the way up to positive. It's still negative, but it's changed a little bit. It was nearly negative 9% on our last show, about negative 8.7%. This week down to about negative 7.2%. So coming off that tip a little bit on the call to put up a bit from last show, ever so slightly. Effectively unched. It was 66% last week. This week, 67%. So still calls in the driver's seat, 2/3 of the open interest out there on the call side of the paper. Perhaps not surprising given the fact that we've seen such a rally out there since our last show. OI, let's dig into what the options open interest is showing us. Remember, these are the open positions out there, listeners. And we saw a huge explosion of open interest going into the June expiration. That, of course, came off. We were wondering, would we be able to break it? Saw a decent upswing there in July again. And then, of course, that came off with July expiration. And then heading into August here, in the middle of August or so, we're seeing decent open interest out there. And that's the euphemistic way to put it. It's firm, it's strong, it's trending in the right direction, trending up. It's not beating recent levels before July expiration or anything along those lines. That was well north of $2 billion. Looks like about 2.1, almost 2.2 billion total across all the venues. Right now, it looks like we're still shy of that. Yeah, we are shy of that 2 billion level. Deribit at about 1.5 billion right now. So that's still pretty firm out there in Deribit land. BAKKT can't manage to put together an options trade to save its life these days. Still at zero open interest. We talked about on the last show. This is their longest streak, I think ever, without an options trade on there. So I'd love to get them on, talk to them about what they think is going on with this platform. They have raised a lot of money. They were kind of first to that race of the physically settled contracts. Everyone thought that was going to be the hot new thing. Take your spot, translate it right into the options and vice versa. Yet, for whatever reason, not lighting up the tape out there. CME closing in on 200 million notional, about 195. So that's a decent level for them. The highest we've seen from CME is about 270. So not that far away from that. Again, I hate quoting notional, but sometimes that's all you got out here, listeners. Ledger X looking firm at about 57 million. And OKEX, a clear number 3 right now, but threatening CME there at about 107 million. The highest we've seen from Ledger X is 114 million, so they're not that far away from it out there. Let's go back, though, to the number one venue out there with $1.5 billion worth of open interest. That's, of course, Deribit. Pretty light week compared to some of the recent explosions we've seen of late. The big day a couple of weeks ago out here, 527 million we saw going up in one day on Deribit. This past week, quieter, decent active week, but nowhere near that level, about not even half of it, really. 244 million was the big day out here this week. Of course, some of that is, of course, just that frame of reference of that big day, which was July 27th, by the way, listeners, so a couple of weeks ago. That kind of skews the numbers a little bit. Otherwise, without that day in there, maybe this graph might look a little bit more impressive. But 244, nothing to sneeze at out there. That was on August 11th of last week. So that was, of course, Tuesday. Not a heck of a lot else on the tape out there last week. Let's see what was lighting up the tape on the 11th. It seemed like it was the SEP 11,000 and 12,000 puts that were leading the dance. So interesting strikes for the put side out there. 750 lot of the SEP 11,000 puts went up on the 11th when Bitcoin was at 11,545. They went up for 0.058 Bitcoin out there. Also saw a couple of 500 lots, so 1,000 combined, of the SEP 12,000 puts at, looks like, pretty much the same time. So a bit of a vertical, maybe a bit of a ratio vertical here, 1,000 by 750. Interesting ratio if that's the case. They also went up when Bitcoin was at about 11,550 or so, pretty close to it. They went up for 0.097 Bitcoin, the 12,000 puts out there. Let's see any other funky spot. Also saw on the 11th another 1,000 lot of the SEP 11,000 puts going up for 0.058 again when Bitcoin was about the same level. And this looks like about 20 minutes before the other print. So you're talking 1,750 of the SEP 11,000 puts versus the 1,000 of the 12,000s. Interesting. They all went up around the same time. They're not marked as spread because we don't really see that in that level of insight into the paper flow out here. Also, they don't have a side for these. So we have to kind of read in between the tea leaves out there. But the SEP, 12,000 and 11,000 puts. In terms of big block trades, big contracts out there, those were leading the dance on Deribit last week. Pretty much all that paper on the 11th, which coincidentally was the most active day of the week out there. Today, not a heck of a lot on the tape. The big print out there coming into showtime was the March 8,000 put. Interesting strike going up. Obviously, March of 2021, listeners, 500 times on Deribit, followed by the SEP 11,000 puts back on the radar with about 400 and change going up today. Let's look at the OI across the month, see where the action is. We have blown through now multiple strikes here to the upside, and looks like, well, before we get to the strike, actually, let's get to the months and see where the hot open interest size is for the months. And it was August right now, has about 54,000 contracts. That's decent paper. SEP is coming up behind it at 47,500. So they're pretty much neck and neck. And if you go back to June, listeners, that had 114,000 contracts. So June had pretty much both of these combined. So we're not quite seeing that level of OI yet, but still a decent amount of paper. SEP has some time to catch up to June. We'll see if SEP can make it there by the time we get to SEP expiration. But August now over 50K, so that's an interesting level out there. Let's go back to the strikes now. We were talking about blowing through the 12,000 strike out here this week and sustaining it. Let's see how it's looking from an OI perspective on the strikes. And if you guessed 12,000 was leading the dance, you would be correct. 16,600 contracts open on that 12,000 strike, followed by, you probably guessed it, 11,000. They were neck and neck last week. Now 12,000 clearly pulling ahead, but 11,000 not that far in the rearview mirror. 14,400 as well. Then we go out to, looks like not even 13. We skipped 13 again. The strike skipping out here is kind of weird. We go up to 14,000 for number 3 with 11,700. So back when we were at 9,000, you guys were skipping past 10,000, looking at 11,000. Now we're at 12,000. You guys are blowing right past 13 and heading on out to 14,000, putting on nearly 12,000 contracts out there. That's an interesting phenomenon in crypto. I'm not sure why they jump past strikes, but clearly they do. Let's go out to Bitcoin land on CME, see how things were faring. Let's start with the options. A decent week, all things considered. A couple hundred contracts a day seemed like it was the average out there. The big day was Tuesday with about 250. Also Monday at 250 as well. So somewhere around 200 to 250 most of the days. Nowhere near the big day we saw a few weeks back on July 28th. That had over 1,101 to be precise out there. But that was a bit of a vertical. I think went up about 400 or 500 times. But nothing like that over the past week. But still, decent flow we're seeing out there. There's some paper, which is nice to see. It's not just huge fits and starts and then nothing. Futures, similar tail out there, a pretty decent volume week. Coming into showtime today, it was about 8,000 contracts on the tape. Last week, on Friday, it was 11,500, which eerily was the exact same number as the previous week, about 11,500 out there as well. Thursday, same deal, about 6,000 contracts on the tape. Pretty much the exact same as the week before as well. So interesting symmetry to end out the week there. Wednesday, 7,000. Tuesday, about 12,000. And Monday, 11,000. Those were not similar, but still interesting stuff afoot out there. What's not really interesting right now is what the BAKKT volume bot has to say, unfortunately, because there's just not a lot of paper for it to parse. The futures, at least, are trading. The options, not trading, but the futures, at least, are trading. 3,379 contracts on this most recent report from the BAKKT volume bot. That puts it down 32%. It was 40.65 million worth of notional out there. Remember, that's a one-to-one contract, so no funky 5x multiplier like you see out there in CME land. All-time high, again, was 12,000 and change back on, actually, more recently. We talked about those in December, but they hit their futures all-time high back on July 28th. So 12,200, I think they surpassed. It was 12,000 and change back in December of last year. So that's at least a good sign. They're bucking the trend in the last couple of weeks on the futures side. So there clearly are signs of life perhaps here, which is good. OI is up about 4% to about 17.3 million. We just need that futures volume to translate into the options. I'm sick of staring at that goose egg out there in the BAKKT options. Meanwhile, it's time for us to stare at what's popping off in the rest of the crypto space. It is time to explore the altcoin universe.
It's time to move beyond Bitcoin and find out what's moving the rest of the crypto marketplace. It's time to boldly venture into the altcoin universe.
All right, everybody, let's dance. Let's see what we got here in the altcoin universe. Let's start in the top 10 land because there's been some moving and shaking out there of late. Remember, same caveat applies. Take these overall valuation numbers with a huge grain of salt. We talked about it many times on the show in the past, how these numbers are kind of ginned up a little bit, but the rankings have some merit. Number 10, EOS at about, looks like 3.6 billion. Number 9, Cardano, 3.6 as well. Number 8, Bitcoin SV, 4.2 billion. Number 7, Litecoin, 4.3, almost 4.4 billion. Then we jump up a bit to number 6, Bitcoin Cash, just a tick under 6 billion. Number 5, Chainlink, our old friend Chainlink, fighting its way into the top 5 over there. Interesting things afoot with Chain. They just broke into the top 10 not too long ago. That one's been on the radar for a lot of people of late. And 6.5 billion right now as it climbs to number 5. Number 4, Tether, just a hair under 10 billion out there for number 4. Number 3, 14.5 billion. XRP threatening to get bumped from the top 3 if these trends continue. Number 2, ETH, 49, almost 50 billion. ETH has been on the rampage of late. Number 1, of course, Bitcoin, north of 12K. That means we're north of 200 billion, 227 billion as of the start of the show. Let's go out to our number 2 now with the big dog outside of Bitcoin. This is, of course, ETH. Interesting comments on the show of late by some of our guests that maybe the ETH ecosystem worth more interesting than ETH itself. Well, ETH heard that and said, I'll see you one. I'll raise you one this week. Up 44, almost 45 handles from our last show. Coming into this show is at 442 and change. So just another crazy run out here. It's been kind of ETH madness of late. ETH and all things kind of DeFi and that ecosystem are just exploding. So another great week for ETH. Let's parse some of the options flow, the volume, the volatility out there. The realized vol, again, going back 30 days in Bitcoin, is up from 74% last show to 82%. Again, not surprising. This thing has been moving of late. Now we go forward 30 days out to the implied volatility. That's up as well. It was 93% last week, 103% this week. So ETH vol is now in the triple-digit realm out there, over 100%. Hard to argue that that is not warranted out there. 100%. We were talking about on our TWIFO show not too long ago about what assets are pricing in, what kind of vol. You go out to the farther portion of the Treasury spectrum, 3-year plus 10-year, they're pricing in single-digit vols. Even crude oil vol has come in late. I think it's in the 20s or so. Now you have 5x that in all things ETH. Gold, it's nowhere near these levels. It's just interesting to see. You know, gold vol has been an interesting talking point. Catches a bid, then it comes in quite a bit. It hasn't been up to, I can't remember the last time it was at 100. And I'll have to go pull up, see what it is right now. But interesting things afoot out here, comparing your more traditional commodity markets to things like ETH from an overall volatility perspective. Let's see out here. Let's keep on running. Speaking of, before we get to that, let's look at the biggest volume spikes out here. Let's see, we're at about 30 million. That's the ADV right now is about 30 million right now, up from about 24 million last show. The biggest spike we saw this past week, decent number, 66 million. That was on the 14th. That surpasses our previous high we saw the previous week with 35 million on the 7th. So big jump out here again in ETH. Looking at the chart again, big numbers out here on Deribit. OKEX coming on strong as well. We're seeing, interesting stuff out here. High of the OI for Deribit in June was 165 million. Obviously, well north of that now for ETH. We're looking at 429 million for Deribit, 39 million for OKEX. Both of them, OKEX pretty much at its high. The high was 40 million, and the high right now for Deribit with 429 million. So both of them at their highs, blowing past almost 2x now the highs of OI we saw back in June. So interesting stuff out here. Also interesting stuff for our old friend XRP. Feeling a little bit of the love, feeling a little bit of the lift. Up about 3 cents from our last show. Coming into this show, it's about 32.5 out there right now. So all you out there who are wondering whether this rising crypto tide was going to lift XRP along with it, it had a lot of headwinds to it for a while. You know, dilution, people accusing, the core XRP folks of dumping it out there, and all these things that were hanging over it, lawsuits. Seems like it's shucking off some of that now, up to the 30-cent level. It'd be nice to see it get to some more round levels where we talk about some interesting options flow out there. It's kind of hard to talk about options flow on a 30-cent name when the name is effectively an option itself. But c'est la vie. Interesting stuff we're seeing out there this week. Bitcoin Cash up nearly 20 handles, 19.7, and Bitcoin SV up nearly 6 handles, about 588 from last show. All right, let's keep on rolling on this quick hit episode. Let's get some of you on a little bit of your crypto questions.
You've got questions about crypto. Who doesn't? It's time to find out the answers to your crypto questions.
All right, everybody, let's see what you guys have on the brain this week. Frequent listener, frequent commenter, Mr. Scott Somer chiming in. He saw this headline of the U.S. seized digital currency accounts used by militant groups. And he chimed in and said, guess your crypto account isn't necessarily out of reach of the government after all. Yeah, well, these edge cases are always interesting and or inflammatory for a lot of people. But these brokerage firms, at the end of the day now, that's who have these accounts, whether you're talking your Coinbases or your Krakens or others, they have to be domiciled somewhere. They have to be regulated somewhere. So I know a lot of the spirit, the ethos of crypto was this decentralized thing, and it's all anonymous and everything else like that. But the firms that handle your transactions are not. And so if the government comes knocking, most of these things are going to cave and give over your credentials out there. And it has been, there's been accusations for a while, ever since the early days of crypto, about it being used as a money laundering tool for a lot of fringe elements, militias, terrorists, drug cartels, that sort of thing. And there certainly is that element to it, but hey, they money launder in dollars too, right? So it's kind of hard to just say it's just for that use case. And crypto was kind of labeled with that for a long time in the infancy of, hey, it's just this tool for terrorists and money launderers. It's clearly not the case, but hey, you have brokers now that are beholden to some law. And so if the government comes knocking, they have to answer. Fortunately or unfortunately, I guess, depending on your viewpoint, Scott. Sounds like you're in the latter category there. But yeah, if you're thinking of crypto as this complete anonymous, hey, no one can track me, no one can shut down my accounts, I'm out there living on the fringe, clearly this news may be a little bit of a cold glass of water in the face for you. All right, we'll wrap it up here with this one. This one just brought a smile to my face. This was from listener Stock PhD, so he's a Dr. Stocks. He's the doctor of stocks. And someone asked over the weekend, I think it was some firm out here that was asking a lot of their followers. They wanted to know over the weekend, just what are you watching, A, and what are you drinking? And this guy chimed in, this Dr. Stocks, said he was drinking Big Dogs Brewing, I should say, and he was listening to us here on the network. Well, thank you for that, Stocks PhD out there, Dr. Stocks. And, of course, that music means we've come to the end of this quick hit episode, listeners. There it is. I want to thank all of you out there, like Dr. Stocks, for listening to us over the weekend. Glad we could accompany that's be an interesting conversation. What beverages pair well with our shows? Maybe something a little bit more full-bodied, a little bit more robust for shows like the Option Block. Maybe for things like Vol Views, where you want to get, or even the Advisor's Option, you want to get a little bit more thoughtful, a little bit more deep into some certain topics. Maybe you got to dial it back. You can't go for the hard, heavy stuff because we're talking about term structure and all kinds of crazy stuff out there. So maybe you dial it back a little bit lighter. Maybe you go a rosé. Maybe a spritzer, something light. And then, of course, for shows like this, let us know what is a good pairing for a show like this. Everything's been moving hot and heavy lately. Maybe you need something hard and heavy to keep up with it out here. Maybe a nice hard lemonade might be kind of good to flow with crypto. I'll leave it up to you guys what pairings go well with our various programs. Again, we'll be back next week with more great guests, more fun stuff to talk about, all things crypto. Hope you like the guests. I clearly see what you guys have been saying out there on the various platforms. You're liking what you're hearing. Keep those reviews coming. Keep that love coming so we can keep this show coming to you. And, of course, we have more shows coming at you throughout the week, not just crypto. This is just Monday. So stay tuned to the network throughout the rest of the week. If you like what you hear, keep those reviews coming, and we'll see you back here throughout the week for the Option Block, the Advisor's Option, OPR, Options Bootcamp, episode 100. This week, you guys, a lot of you listen to this show, new to the option space. That's probably one you're going to want to check out. And then we'll be back again next Monday for more of the Crypto Rundown.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions@theoptionsinsider.com.